Welcome, everybody.
Hey, hey. Good boy, Tucker.
Work smarter where you want.
This is learning at its most fun.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. Today we have a best practice partner spotlight with our partners Identified. Just a couple logistical things before we get started. Note that this webinar will be recorded and posted to both the Redtail YouTube channel and also the Redtail Help Desk. So for whatever reason you missed any of the content today, know that you can go back and watch it anytime on the Redtail Help Desk or the Redtail YouTube channel. Right now, your microphones have been muted, your cameras have been turned off, but don't worry, you can still interact with the presenters today by heading to the QA section equipped in the Zoom meeting. Here's where you can go ahead and enter in your questions about the products that you'll see today, as well as we'll also be checking the chat. Just note that the QA will be prioritized over the chat, so if you'd like to have your question answered first, be sure to enter it to the QA and not the chat. All right, well, with that said, let's go ahead and jump to it. Omar and Ned, are you guys there today?
Yeah, hey Austin, how are you?
We're here.
Hey Ned, hey Omar. Omar, I'm gonna pass it over to you. I know that you wanted to give a brief word before we get started today.
Yeah, Austin and Redtail team, thank you so much for having us. My name is Omar Sari. I had partnerships at Identified. I'm so glad to be here. And with me, I have Ned. He's our chief strategist, and he's our champion when it comes to financial services. It's been 1 year since we launched our partnership, and a lot has happened since then. A lot of great successes, some great common customers. And what we talk today is just to reconnect with the ecosystem and really kind of to highlight, you know, some of the results that have happened since last year, and then to really show you kind of what we have came up with since last year when it comes to do some key functionality that would be very helpful to you guys. Again, thanks Austin for having us. And you guys, Austin and Ned, you can go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Omar. All right, Ned, I'd like to ask you a couple questions as the chief strategist. The first one is I'm wondering about strategies as far as prospecting goes. So I work with a lot of advisors, and the one thing that I hear is that advisors are busy. You know, they're managing their existing clients, and sometimes, you know, prospecting can get pushed away to the side. How does Identify help solve this problem?
That is an excellent question, Austin, and thank you again so much for having us on today. So before I just jump into that, just a little bit of background. So I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Identified. I've spent my whole career, about 30 years, working to help top advisors provide excellent solutions for their clients and to help them manage their practice. And I've done that through leadership roles, both in asset management firms as well as wealth management. So I'm very passionate about what we're going to talk about today. And the topic of prospecting is a critical one. It's the vitality, it's the forward-looking component of anybody's business. And certainly that changed dramatically last year as we all had to pivot our practices to stay-at-home orders, working remotely, seeing clients over Zoom and all those things. So, you know, we also adapted. And I think that one of the things that we'd like to show you as we go into the demo, I want to talk about a couple things at a high level, and then we'll actually walk you through them later. But with regard to prospecting, there's a couple of things that we're doing to really try to help busy advisors. And the first is, at Identified, we really think it's important to meet your clients where they are, not to try to bring them to you. So what I mean by that is our software is centered around relationships and community. So understanding things going on in your relationship sphere is incredibly important. So certainly you can come to our app to look at that, but again, we want to come to where you are. So as you'll see when we go through the demonstration later, The first thing we do is we push notices to our clients in the morning when something happens in your network. A client has a wealth event, prospect has some kind of a change. We want to make sure you see that first thing so you can act on it. Another thing that we're excited to show you is a new technology that we're integrating with our application that basically lets you have the identified insights available to you wherever you're browsing on the web. So we're excited to show you that as well.
Awesome, Ned. And I want to ask the question, if I was a financial advisor and I'm just getting started with Identified, what would you recommend I would start looking for a prospect on the platform?
Yeah, so there's two places for that, Austin, and we're going to show you that in a minute. But the first is we have the original product that we shared with you all a year ago was really based on the first component, which is the concept of money in motion. So there's a tremendous amount of insight there. What's changed though is it becomes a lot more centric to our clients. So not just looking at wealth events that are happening around the country, but wealth events that are happening to people in your network or people that are your clients or your prospects. So that's probably the first place to start when you're looking at our application. And then the other is brand new to our discussion from last year. We've opened up our entire database of nearly 300 million profiles to our clients. And so you can do some really incredibly detailed lookalike prospecting, B2B prospecting, and those kind of things. I'm excited to share that with you in a bit. But I think those two things are probably the key part. And the thing I want to emphasize is that we give our clients the ability to look at the whole universe, but also to tighten the lens down and focus just on people that you know are important to you as prospects. So we'll get to that as we go through the demo.
Great, and I'm hearing a lot of discussion about this network. How do I integrate my network into Identified?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've done, and we'll get there in the demo, but I want to just put a fine point on what we talk about when we're speaking about a network. So we all have networks. We have formal ones and informal ones, and we have places that we capture those networks. So certainly Redtail is a place where you would capture relationships on your CRM, but we also know that you use LinkedIn to manage a network. You have contacts on your mobile device, iPhone and Android phones. You have contacts in Outlook, you have contacts in Gmail. All of those things can actually be integrated into our application. And then all of those things are actually augmented by the relationships that we understand, because we know a lot about America. We know a lot about the connectivity between people. So you may have your network and your set of people that you're focused on, but we can show you some more that are tied to relationships that your clients have, for example. So really exciting development. And we have the ability to bring all of that together in one place with Identified. And then I think incredibly importantly, integrate that into Redtail so that you can keep track of all of that in one place. And you can also, sort of manage contact, communication, follow-ups, etc.
All right, wow. Well, sounds like Identify has some really cool technologies. I always like to ask this question of our existing partners. What's next for you guys? What technology do you have in the works?
Yeah, so there's a couple of exciting things around the corner, Austin, that I'll show you toward the back part of our demo. The first is something that I mentioned in the beginning. So we've done a tremendous amount of work on our application, and I'm excited to share that with you. But we also recognize that everyone's busy and that you don't necessarily need to, live your life in our application as much as we'd love to have you there, as much as you'd like to be. So the biggest piece of development is basically a Google plugin, a Chrome browser plugin, which will allow the Identified intelligence to sit on the sideline, but be available to you whenever you're looking at it. So when you're looking at somebody on LinkedIn, you can see what we know about that person. Coming soon will be any corporate URL, any company page you look at, to be able to click a button and see everybody that you know at that company and everybody that you know that could introduce you to people at that company. And then stage 3 of that development, which will be in the next couple months, is if you're looking at any story, any news article, you can highlight either a company name or a person's name and see that same insight. So we think that's going to be tremendously valuable. It's going to have us basically live where you live, and that's a big piece of our development going forward. A couple other things that we're excited about. We're bringing a lot more business-to-business data into our application, and that's going to be somewhat in concert with that technology I just described. And then finally, when we launched our product in the beginning, we were I wouldn't say we weren't mobile first. We were mobile at the same time as a desktop. We launched both products together. As the world changed last year and people stopped commuting and people were working from home, we decided to really push our efforts into the desktop development. And so our next body of work is going to be to bring the mobile environment to catch that up with the desktop. So we're excited about those three things.
All right. Well, that's all awesome stuff, Ned. And how about we move forward with this demo? Let's see this all in action. I'm sure we're all hungry for it. So feel free to grab that screen and let's take a look at this Identified and how we can use some of these tools.
Perfect. Just want to confirm, Austin, that I got my screen up in front of you all.
Yep, we
can see it there. Fantastic. That's great. Okay, so welcome to Identified, everybody. A lot has changed since we met a year ago, quite literally in the world, but certainly with our technology. So the first piece, just as a reminder for those of you who may have heard about us before or have looked at us along the way, our software is built on an incredible database of public information. And it's very unique because it's the combination of business to business as well as business to consumer information. So we bring about 15 different databases together to create incredibly rich profiles of individuals and their relevance to you. So we start there. Once we built that database and the work that we did since our first training session with Redtail, we then started understanding the relationship between people in America. So think about people that serve on a corporate board together. They know each other. That's information that we have. We can identify that and show that relationship path. People that work in companies together on a leadership team or used to work together. But because we also have business to consumer information, we can say, well, these people went to college together, or these people are next door neighbors. So all of those things have created our relationship paths, and we have over 5 billion relationship paths mapped in our application today. However, we also, as I mentioned before, allow our clients to bring their own relationships to us as well and integrate them. And so I'm going to just show you here what that means. So this is where I keep my relationships. So I use LinkedIn. I've been using LinkedIn for a long time. Many of us do. I have about 2,000 connections on LinkedIn. I also was able to integrate connections from my iPhone, from my Gmail. We have the ability to do Outlook. We also have the ability to do any kind of data file that you might have, members of your club or the YPO organization that you belong to, or any other group of names. You can integrate that into our application. So all of those are your relationships. When you integrate your relationships to us, we don't take that data into our database, but we do say, okay, here are 2,000 people that are in Ned's network. These people are important to Ned. Let's show him what we know about those people. And so that's the context. We don't actually capture the fact that I know these people or that these are relationships of mine. We just use this as the means to filter the data that we've already got and let our clients see their networks in a whole new light. One of the other things that I think is really important too is that we all work in teams, we refer business to one another, and so we wanted to make sure that that capability was available in our software as well. So right now I'm looking at my individual network, but we also can think about networks in a team. And so for example, here are a bunch of teams that I'm part of. These are clients of ours, and I'll give you an example. This is a wealth management team made up of 3 partners. And then think of my network like a CPA or an estate planning attorney or some kind of outside influence that they have looked to integrate into their network. So together, we have about 4,000 people on LinkedIn. And what that means is that we have much deeper reach into lots of other industry verticals, and I'll show you kind of how that works in a minute. So teaming is really important. Teams are defined by our clients, and we can build them however people want us to do that. So so back to the application. Just wanted to share with you this this functionality because I think it's really important. If you come back into Money in Motion, what you'll see here is just over the past week, the wealth events that happened in the US. And so we capture all kinds of public filings from the SEC, companies filing to go public or companies that just had their IPO. We look at insider transactions, so executives that are selling stock, getting new grants of equity, or purchasing shares on the open market. We also look at mergers and acquisitions and corporate spinoffs. And then finally, in this category, a very busy area indeed, has been private companies. And we follow private companies through their ability to raise money in the capital markets. So doing a Series A or B or C round of financing, this is sort of following the success of a private company and could be leading toward mergers, could be leading toward an IPO, those kinds of things. So a pretty normal week in America here. 2,400 approximately executives that we're tracking for this week at about 440 companies and 71 billion of new wealth events. That's a tremendous amount of people to look through. So as I said, our application is really focused on relationships and focused on the community that you serve. And so when you look at the mapped relationships that we've created, using our technology, plus the networks that I showed you a minute ago that I brought to the table, here's the subset of all those people that I have some relationship with. So you see here, none of my direct relationships this week had a wealth event, but I have 51 people that I have some kind of a pathway to, a referral pathway that had a wealth event. So I want to focus on that for a minute and show you how our system works. So one of the areas that's always very interesting is executives that are selling stock. And so if I look here, there were 199 of them this past week, but 9 of them are people that we know that I have some pathway to. So if I click this here, this will bring me down to the details, and I can see who are those people, and they're all listed down here. And you can see as I hover over people's names, you see the red-tailed dog here. You can very easily just click that button and add this person as a new contact or profile on Redtail. So that's built pervasively, whether you're looking at individuals or you're pulling up a list of names, that goes with you. So let's look at this first one here. So Mark Aslett, he's the CEO of Mercury Systems in Winchester, Massachusetts. And he sold some stock actually just a couple days ago, about $100,000 worth of stock. And one of the things that a lot of the advisors that use our system really like to see here is that we also show the balance of shares that Mark has that he's not yet sold. So Mark has a little over 20 million of stock of Mercury that he's still holding, hasn't sold. Obviously a very high net worth individual and somebody that, would be in a lot of folks' radar in terms of potential clients. We don't just see people with 20 million or 50 million or 100 million of stock. We also see people like Elizabeth right here, who's the treasurer at Goldman Sachs, and that's probably a division of Goldman Sachs that she's the treasurer of. You can see that her holdings are, 300,000, so less certainly ultra high net worth than Mark is. But let's go back to Mark for a minute and I'll look at his profile. And this will give you an example of how our system is set up and the kinds of information that you can find on Identified. So I mentioned that we bring together household information as well as business professional information, and that's what you see here. So over on the left, this is Mark's consumer information. So he's 52 years old. He's married, he's got 3 kids, 2 in elementary school, 1 in middle school. He lives in Winchester, Mass. We added this little Zillow link right here. This lets you actually, if you click that, it goes to 76 Wildwood Street in Winchester, so that you can get an understanding of, his real estate and, where he lives, etc. Over here is his professional information. So he's the CEO of Mercury Systems in Chelmsford, Mass. We also have his career history. So he was at Interisys before that, Wedgmere Partners, etc., going back in time. So you can see, the kinds of things you might want to look for on somebody on LinkedIn. It's right here in his profile. We also have his educational background, very importantly, contact information. And one of the things that we're really pleased about, especially for emails and for anybody that's doing, outreach digitally or using, collateral marketing and campaigns and newsletters, is that when you do an export to Redtail, we actually validate the email addresses, and you can see this one's already been validated. So we prove deliverability on that email so that that you're not, going to have a whole lot of bounce backs for emails that aren't valid. Same thing for phones down here, contact info. And then, lastly, and I think most importantly, I don't know Mark, but I do know Derek, and Derek is a client of mine, and Derek and I have a team together. He's the VP of sales at Exclusive Resorts, and he and his colleagues are clients of ours, and my networks are shared with theirs. So, and similarly, mine with them. So in this particular case, I don't know Mark, but Derek does. And so Derek is my warm referral. I would reach out to Derek and say, hey, I'm really interested in speaking with Mark. How well do you know him? And would you mind making an introduction? So other things about Mark's profile down below, we've got some other contacts, some neighbors of his, other people in his household. And then for every profile, we have an integration with LinkedIn. I'm going to actually just click this for a second here. So you see this will bring us over to Mark's LinkedIn. All of this information, you can click right here and add it to Redtail. You can also look here if you want to see more information about Mark that's not on his profile. You can click this Google button that does a search for Mark Aslett at Mercury Systems, and it's a traditional Google search, so that's pretty easy to look at. So really straightforward, and same for all of these other 51 people. If I was thinking about how I'd spend my time in the application, I would start here and look at the people that are, somehow connected to me in terms of a first place to look. So that's kind of the first part of our software. Extremely powerful, extremely timely. It's updated daily. And you can also, right now we're looking at stuff across the country. You can also decide to filter this and set up profiles. So maybe you I don't care about the whole country. I want to just look at the Northeast and a few states. You can limit the view to that. We have a number of our clients that are university endowments. They don't care about everybody in the country. They just care about their alumni. So Harvard only wants to look at Harvard alumni having wealth events. UNC Chapel Hill just wants to look at UNC Chapel Hill alumni. So any kind of filtering and tightening of this very broad application is very easy to do, and you can set up multiple saved profiles that way. So the other important part, and then I'm going to hand it back over to Austin, is our prospect finder. And so this is where this is new to what we talked about last year. We did not have this functionality available. And this is where we open up our entire database of relationships and relationship pathways and client cards to our clients. And so you can do any kind of searching that you want to based on all kinds of household attributes. So you can look for people by name or where they live. You can look at zip codes. We have tremendous amount of personal, sporting, charitable interests that we capture here. So if you want to find people in your state at a certain income level, certain age range that are interested in certain things, you can click on all those different variables and find those kind of people. Look by gender, look by marital status. The information about children is protected information, but you can show the age ranges of children as we did with Mark Aslett's profile. So you can use that in your query. And then you can combine all of that with professional information. And maybe you start with professional, but you know, if you're doing B2B work, but you can look at where people work, their job title, where they went to school, where they used to work, the industry that they're in, size of companies, private companies, public companies. And then lastly, you can also look at all of this by people's income levels and wealth level. So it's really powerful to be able to do any searching using all of these things. And you can look at the whole database, or you can focus your attention on people that you have a connection pathway to. So I'm going to show you a very quick thing, and then I'm going to hand it back over to Austin to pick up the search that I do in a minute. So let's just take a look. I live in Westport, Connecticut, so I'm going to search for my town. So I'm going to first take the database and say, let's look for the state of Connecticut. And when I do that, in a second here, we're going to see the 3.4 million people that live in the state of Connecticut. That's a lot of names, and so let's go a little tighter and let's look at my town of Westport. So Westport, Connecticut, we have about 27,000 people that live in town. Yep, 27,980 people that live in Westport. And again, it's just a list of names at the moment, but I can organize these names with this Insights tab. So let's go here for a minute. And this is grouping. First of all, you can group by any of the searchable attributes we have here. It defaults to companies. So here are the employers for the people that live in Westport. So Bridgewater Associates is the major employer, 115 people there. William Ravis in real estate, UBS, town of Westport, etc. You can see where people work. It's really interesting insight to quickly understand, you know, the employer base of your town and who in your local area where they work. But you can also look at it by any of these other variables. So you can look at industries, you can look at, you know, levels of income, personal interests, marital status, etc. I'm going to say in this example, I'm a financial advisor who's focused on providing retirement plan solutions to my clients. And my main centers of influence that I work with at companies are, you know, certainly the CEOs of companies, but I often find that I have better luck talking to either the head of HR or the chief financial officer. And so here we go. So chief financial officers, there's 32 of them that live here in Westport. I could look at multiple towns, I could look at multiple states, but I'm just going to focus here for the purpose of this example. So here's the 32 people. You can see a bunch of different names, a bunch of different sizes of businesses. Dan McHugh, this guy here, is the CFO of Point72. That is Stephen Cohen's hedge fund, so formerly SAC Capital. So that's Dan, so on and so forth. If I wanted to take this list and move it over to Redtail, it's as simple as this. Click this button, grab them all, add to Redtail. You select 32 people, and what will happen now is this will come out of our system. We're going to prove email deliverability for all of those addresses, and then it will hit on the Redtail system. And I'm going to stop my share because Austin's going to pick it up from here.
All right, thanks, Ned. So
Yeah.
Right now we're going to talk a little bit about what do we do once the contact actually arrives in Redtail? How do these programs work together simultaneously to help you take that prospect and make them a client? So we use Identified. We find the contact based off of the criteria, whether we do that based off a money event or we use the prospect finder tool, just as Ned showed. And then the contacts arrive in Redtail. How do we find them once they arrive in Redtail? Well, of course, we're going to head over to our contacts tab here. And they will come in under the list for recently added. Now, if you have a specific contact in mind that you're looking for, you can, of course, also search for them here at the top. So if I type in Dan McHugh here, we can go ahead and open up his record and we can begin our prospecting processes. Now, today I'm going to show you 3 different types of prospecting processes. The first is for our beginner users. If you're not super familiar with Redtail or just getting started with the platform, I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to keep yourself accountable to prospecting. The other way is going to be more of an intermediate level using opportunities tool within Redtail. And then finally, we're going to finish with an advanced training on how to use workflows to keep yourself accountable and keep those prospects moving through your pipeline. So first up, let's start with the beginner level, and that is to use activities. What we're going to do is we're going to start a new activity here for Dan. We're going to click on the plus button here at the top, choose activities, and then we're going to just go ahead and create the activity that we want to do for Dan. So this might be an email, this might be a phone call, whatever you're doing, you're going to reach out to them in some kind of capacity. And here I'm going to create an activity for myself on my calendar. So I might do a phone call tomorrow, and I'm just going to do it an all-day event because I don't know what time I'm going to make the phone call. I just know that the phone call is going to happen sometime tomorrow, and I'm going to create that activity. So therefore, it adds it to my calendar here, and I know that when I log into my Redtail CRM tomorrow, I'm going to have an activity to reach out to Dan. And so when I do that, I'm going to go ahead and open up this activity. I can always go ahead and hover over here to Dan's record and view his phone number or his email address. And then I'm going to go ahead and make that reach out. Once I make that reach out, I can go ahead and add in a linked note. So for example here, let's say I reached out to Dan and I had to leave a voicemail. So I'm just going to say left VM for left voicemail. So that way I have that note added. And then I'm going to go ahead and save and clone this activity. So what this does is it's going to make an exact copy of the activity that I just created. So that way I can go ahead and move it over to Friday when I'm going to reach out again. So I might reach out number 2, and then I'll go ahead and save this one. It's going to take me back to the original where I'll go ahead and complete it and make a note that this phone call was done on that day and that time. So again, if we look here at Dan's record, we can see that we have the notes added. We reached out to him today at 10:30. We left him a voicemail. And then of course, on our calendar here, we have another reach out scheduled for Friday. So again, very entry level, beginner level prospecting tool is basically just using that activity. First, we create the activity. Then once we do it, we add our notes in as a linked note. And then if we need to follow up again, we're going to save and clone that activity to basically keep the process going, and to repeat until we get that discovery meeting with Dan and hopefully be able to onboard him as a new client. Okay. So now let's talk about the intermediate level. So if you've been using Redtail for a couple months now, you feel like you're a seasoned veteran of using notes and activities and such, and you're looking for a second place to keep all of your information, well, that you can use is the opportunities tab here. So since I'm on Dan's record here, I'm just going to start it from this page. Click on the plus button here, and I'm going to create an opportunity for Dan. Okay. So from here, I can go ahead and enter in my information. I'm just going to type in his name here. In queue. And just like Ned said, we are retirement planners. So we're going to make him a retirement plan. And I can even give it a description if I like. So found Dan on Identified. Oops, spelled that wrong.
That's okay.
I found Dan on Untitled. He is a CFO in Westport, Connecticut. Okay. And then I can go ahead and add that as a new opportunity. And so this now becomes my dashboard. You can see here, I have a little bit more information that I can add inside this opportunity tracker here. I can go ahead and give my next steps. So again, same instance, we might call to set up meeting. We can give ourselves a close date on when we want that meeting to happen. So again, I'll set that for tomorrow. And then we can even delegate this opportunity out. We can give this to a specific person. We could even indicate the source if we want. So we can add Identified to our source list. Let me actually show you how to do that. We're going to go to our database lists here by going to your name, manage your account. And we're going to go ahead and edit that source list by coming down here to manage database lists. And so I'm just going to go ahead and create the source for Identified. And so that way I know which of these leads are coming from Identified. And so we go back to that opportunity for Dan. There he is. We can give credit to the source of being identified. All right. We can also do these stages here too. So you notice when I had a reach out, I entered in the number. These stages here we can use to basically track where we're at in the process. So is this our first reach out, our second reach out, our third reach out. You can customize this list however you want. So if you wanted to, you could add in maybe first meeting, maybe proposal, maybe commitment, maybe onboarding, could be all examples of stages that you can add to this drop down here. And what I love about the opportunities, it's a little bit different than the activities, is I can actually give myself a monetary value for this prospect. So if Dan here was a high valued prospect for me, I can go ahead and put in a number to that value. So I can say this is $1 million opportunity. How much do I think I can gain from this opportunity? I'll go ahead and give myself, you know, maybe $10,000 as projected revenue for this particular opportunity. And so this now becomes your central hub for all of your prospects. We're going to be adding in leads from Identified. We're going to be tagging them with the source of Identified. And this becomes our central hub for where we can go each time we want to open up on our calendar that time for prospecting and spend some time in this opportunity, just clicking into these different opportunities and updating what are the next steps. So maybe after we've successfully called Dan a couple times, we set up our meeting and we're finished. Well, now what we can do is we can go ahead and indicate this as a closed won opportunity, which means we finished this. We don't have any more steps anymore. And let's say it took us until maybe the middle of February to finish it. We can go ahead and save this opportunity, and Redtail will actually give us credit for that $1 million won in assets under management by bringing on Dan as a client. And then of course I could also track things like my projected and actual revenues. So again, if you're looking for a way to put number values or monetary values to your prospects and you feel like you're at an intermediate level in Redtail, opportunities can be a great place for this. Now, the final one I'm going to show you is the advanced level feature, and that is using Redtail workflows. This is a fun one because it allows for me to delegate this opportunity out to multiple team members. So let's head on back to Dan's record here. Go ahead and open them up here. Rather than creating an opportunity or an activity, I'm going to this time click on here and I'm going to add a workflow. Okay. And so it's going to ask me what workflow template do I want to use. In this case, I have a nice little prospecting workflow that I've developed that helps me to stay accountable to my prospecting process. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put in the information here and create this new workflow. And what this does is it's basically going to create a drip system here. So what I have here is basically 4 planned interactions that I can use at any time to be reminded. So on the 26th, it's automatically been assigned to me to create the phone call and send the email. On the 29th, I'm going to send another email. On the 2nd, I'm going to make another call. And then finally, on the 7th, I'm going to make my final phone call. And at any time, I can jump down here to either not interested or interested in meeting. Okay, so let's go ahead and work through this. I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to go to my Today page here. And notice that I have, it looks like I forgot to assign the workflow. Sorry about that. Let's go back a page here. I need to assign these tasks out. So I'm going to assign these here to the user of Greg because we are logged in as Greg today. And so now I can use this assignee option to, again, delegate out. If I need to adjust due dates, I can do that as well. But again, the idea here is it's not always Greg that has to make the phone call. If you have a salesperson in your office, if you have an assistant that you think can send some of these emails out, then you can go ahead and use that to delegate to that specific person. Okay, and then of course, let's go ahead and update these two here. Good. And one more time here, I'm going to just set up this task here to assign it to Greg. And there we go. So we're ready to use it now. And so now if we go to our Today page, we'll see that Greg has 2 workflow tasks due today. He needs to give a call to Dan and he needs to send an email. So same thing applies here. We're going to hit this complete button. We're going to hit this complete button again. And then it's going to ask us what was the outcome. In this case, we're given 3 choices. We can either say that A, we completed the interaction, but there's more interaction that needs to happen. We could say that maybe we reached Dan and he's interested in a meeting. We can jump right to the end of the workflow that he's interested in a meeting. Or maybe we called Dan and he said, please never contact me again. In that case, we can go ahead and put him in as a not interested and then set him up on a drip campaign to follow up in a couple weeks. I'm kidding about that last part, but here's where we can go choose this part here. So I'm going to say that I left a voicemail here. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and complete this step. And then what Redtail is going to do is in 3 days time, it's going to remind me on the 29th here that I need to send Dan another email. So again, I might open up Dan's record here, go ahead and click on his email addresses that came in from Aidentified, and go ahead and just send him out a nice little email about the services that I offer and hopefully make that introduction. Okay. And so let's just say at this point, we did get a hold of Dan, and yes, he was interested in signing up with us. Congratulations, we just scored a new client. What we can do now is we can come on down here, complete that workflow, and we could say that Dan is interested in meeting. Okay, cool. So now we're going to go ahead and move forward to interested in meeting. It's going to automatically skip me down to the bottom of the workflow. And then I'm going to go ahead and use activities to schedule that discovery meeting. So I'll probably update his contact category to something like prospect. I'll go ahead and schedule a meeting for him. So that way we have a time on the calendar for us to meet. Let's say we're going to meet next Wednesday. Go ahead and just put that in there for the 3rd. This is going to be a discovery meeting. And then at that point, I can even start my next workflow process. So I'll mark this one as finished here. It's going to create a note for Dan here that we've completed that process. Give that page a refresh here. Here we can see that prospecting number 1 workflow was completed. And so now I can move to my second workflow process, which is prospecting number 2. And so this is all the prospecting that we're going to do after the meeting. So now we're using another workflow, and this one is all going to be about, here's our discovery meeting. Then we're going to follow up just like we did with that first prospecting workflow. And eventually we're going to get them into either not interested or interested. And then eventually we would work into the next workflow process, which would be to onboard them. So we'd even have a workflow process for onboarding, and we could take them through the onboarding process. And we have a separate process for that during that stage of the workflow. So as you can see here, the point that you're supposed to take home from all of this is regardless of what prospecting tool that you use, depending on your level of expertise at Redtail, you can take your leads in Identified, push them over into Redtail, embed them into your prospecting process, whatever that might be, and translate into more leads. And so using these two softwares together, integrated, is going to translate for more business for you. And again, solve that problem like we talked about in the beginning, making sure that we're staying accountable to following up with our leads and not letting them fall through the cracks. So with that, Ned, I'll pass it back to you. I know you have another call to action. So if you want to grab screen share there.
So Austin, thank you very much. I think it's critically important to think about, how these two systems work together. And I think you did a really great job of showing, really practical application, how you take somebody that was, basically a raw prospect from our system and put that person right into, a process, as you say, a path to accountability and hopefully success with that client. So really important to connect those dots. And I hope everybody saw how seamless that process is. I'd like to share 2 last things before we go. First thing is I'm going to just quickly try one more time, quickly looking at that, the new beta technology that we have. So, I'm back on LinkedIn. I'm actually on my page on LinkedIn, and here's the Identified button. If I click this, you'll see that it just brings over the identified information that we have on our system about, in this case, me. And you can look at this in summary view. You can look at this in a much larger view. And again, you can integrate right into Redtail from here. So you don't even have to be in our application to be able to use the software. So we hope that is useful to everybody. We certainly think that, having the ability to be looking at somebody, a prospect, a client, a center of influence, a news story, as we roll that functionality out, will be, really, really important. And that comes, free with a subscription to Identified. So I want to share a different thing now. So I'm going to do a new share. So I want to show you, I guess, really importantly, how would you move forward with setting up a trial account with us. So very simple, and this information will be posted for you to access later. But we have basically you go to this address, which is app.identified.com VIP/register. You'll enter some information about your name and your firm, and then it's going to ask you for a referrer code. So please enter this. Again, you'll be able to access this after the call, Redtail-trial. That lets us know that you're a Redtail client. That's quite important because, as you'll see down here, Redtail clients are offered a very significant discount to our retail pricing. So our retail price for our application is $349 a month. But as a Redtail client, that's discounted to $100 a month. And you can either pay monthly using the code Redtail30, or you can decide to pay for the full year up front and get an extra 10% discount, and that's using Redtail 365. So that's how you sign up. Once you sign up, you actually, we won't bill your card right away. You get a 14-day free trial. And reminder that the data that you put in our system is yours. We do not take that data into our database, but we do use it to flag the people that are in your network so that you can easily access them and see the enriched profiles of those folks. So if you have any follow-up questions, and we'd be very happy to take questions right now if we have a few minutes left, Austin, but Omar and I and our colleagues are very happy to answer any follow-up questions. If you want to have, a more personalized demo of the software or walk through your practice and see how we might be able to integrate what we offer to you, we're happy to do that. You can contact us anytime at support@identified.com, and we'd be very happy to see how we might be of service.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.